Welcome to Carrying Connected Conversations. I'm Sydney, a spiritual mentor who guides and supports you to live in alignment by finding and owning your power.
I'm Angie, a fitness and life coach, teaching you to love yourself unconditionally by staying accountable to your goals in fitness, food, life, and love. Sid and I are real-life BFFs and biz partners. Our deepest desire is to see you succeed in life by being willing and vulnerable to step out of your comfort zone.
We're constantly learning from each other while also providing support through every breakdown and every breakthrough. Not every conversation is easy. It's the difficult ones that lead you to create deeper connections in your life.
We want to inspire and empower you to love your life. So get ready for conversations filled with laughter, tears, and everything in between. Let's get connecting.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Carrying Connected Conversations. This is Angie chatting at you, and I'm chatting at you specifically on episode 112. And it is just a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day because it's St. Patrick's Day today. So happy St. Patrick's Day, or I guess belated when you're now listening to this. But also I'm in such a good energy because I had my 30th birthday yesterday, and I am still sitting in the celebratory vibes. I'm still sitting in all the feels. And before we even introduce Sid, I'll be real with you guys. Those of you that have been scared of turning 30 or have been scared of turning 30, I'm here to say it's okay. It's okay that you're 30. It's okay that you're going to be turning 30 because it's just a number at the end of the day. So before we chat a little bit further into that, let's actually introduce Sid, see how she's doing, and then let's let that conversation flow the way it needs to. So Sid, how are you doing today? My beautiful, wonderful best friend in the whole entire world.
Hello, I'm doing really good today. I'm doing really good. I'm feeling really good, and life is just really good.
Yes, I love this.
So I'm feeling good. Happy belated birthday. Obviously,
Thank you.
said that to you on your actual birthday, but so the people listening know that I'm acknowledging it. And I agree with you, that idea of 30. My 30th birthday was interesting because about a month and a half before, I received an intuitive message that my dog Poseidon wasn't going to be with me on my 30th birthday. So I was about to say I was actually really excited for my 30th birthday. And I think I was. I think, obviously there was that sense of sadness, but that was before my birthday. But I'm really good. This sounds really weird, but I'm really good with endings for the most part.
Right.
Like when something ends, I very much am like, yeah, that's ended. And I have an emotional closure and an energetic closure with something. So I was able to move through that ending kind of beautifully. So I really had that recognition that my 30th birthday and moving into my 30s was an opening. It was a new beginning in sorts. And yeah. So, I mean, in saying that, and what you said earlier, I think really what this comes down to is this idea of like, why do we think our lives are over when we're going to turn a certain age? Like, why have we put such an energetic attachment, a heavy energetic attachment to age, and like how age defines us and what that means?
Yeah. And the way you kind of explained yourself when you said, I'm good with endings, I kind of want to touch on that for a sec, because I think this is so important. I'm so glad the conversation is geared the way that it is, because this is how I felt literally leading up to my 30th birthday. Most people, or some of us, would think, oh my God, my 20s are ending. That's it. I'm now going to be old. I'm, moving into adulthood. I actually have to get my shit together, X, Y, and Z. But here's the thing, the energy that I was showing up was that I was so excited to turn 30 because that means it was a new beginning to my life. So I wasn't looking at it as the chapter closing. I wasn't looking at like my 20s are done. I'm like, guys, I'm 30. Like there's 10 more years that I'm going to have another amazing decade. I just had an amazing decade. I had so many lessons learned, and I fully embraced where I'm going rather than where I was. And I think that's very common for most of us, like the general population, is that we get so caught up on who we used to be that we get lost in who we're even trying to become. And this is even true for personal development. Anyone that's on their personal growth journey, right? You get so caught up on who you were. Sometimes you'll create that deep attachment to like, oh, well, I used to be negative Nancy, and like, there's no way I'm turning my mindset around now because that was who I was. And like, what are the other people going to think of me? Right. But it's not even a matter of what had happened. It's what's more important is where you're going, because that's one thing you don't know what's going to happen. And that's one thing that you should be the most excited about, because you get to create whatever the heck you want from those new beginnings. So just because an ending is coming to you, I hate to break it to you, my friends, but so is life. Like, we are all going to die at the end of the day. And if we don't create that general understanding, that general acceptance around death, around things that are meant to not last forever, even though we want to think that it does, but it's just an idea. It's just a concept. The reality is we will always have new beginnings. We will always have new starts. So why not embrace that instead of dwelling on the past?
I think it's really interesting, the concept that you're bringing forward, because I think you and we talked a few episodes back when we were talking about our cars and them not being a materialistic thing. One of the things that you and I touched on was how we believe part of our purpose is this idea of adventure and this idea of exploration. So I think it's really easy for you and I to sit here and say, why can't we look at the future in an exciting way? Because you and I love adventure. And the idea of adventure is not having a plan. It's saying, well, we'll see what happens as we go, right? So it's a concept that we can easily flow through for ourselves individually. And I think a lot of people will resonate with that idea as well. The people that are here to create freedom, who are here to explore and to adventure through life. But I think a lot of people resist that 30 because of fear of the unknown. And a lot of people that hold this concept of control. So a lot of people hold on to this idea that, well, I have to look at my past and what I've already experienced, because that's a physical reality that I know can and will and has happened. And so it will repeat again. It's why people, having had experienced pain in their past, have a lot of fear for their future, because we have this belief that our past will dictate our future, right? And this idea of needing to control. So when we head into a whole new decade, for you and I, it's exciting. And I think, again, some other people may resonate with us. It's exciting because it feels like a clean slate. It feels like a fresh start, a chance to say, I've got a whole new decade. What am I going to create with this? Where I think a lot of people have a sense that their 20s were their best years. So there's pain in this concept of, I'm never going to experience something that I've already experienced. Like, now I am married and I have kids and I'm in a job that I don't like. I don't get to be carefree, right? Like, there's these societal attributes that we think dictate how we are meant to experience life. And I think something that you and I do and is part of our purpose individually and together with this podcast and the conversations that we have is bringing in the concept that, well, we don't have to live in the way that other people have lived. We don't have to do things because we're told that that's the way that we have to do things. Let's bring a little bit more curiosity into our lives, and how we can lead with that sense of curiosity.
100%. And I love that you brought this forward, because this was, I'll be honest, before my personal growth journey even started, I was in that mindset that you just explained, like the rest of us, right? Well, like, it's done. So like, now what? And this is something that I've learned to understand a lot more thoroughly as I'm obviously getting older, but also obviously as I'm going through this whole growth spurt, right? Because we're here to constantly grow. We're here to constantly change. And at the end of it all, we are what we know. That's it. we are what we know. So if we're constantly thinking that our past is what will dictate our future, if our previous outcomes happen the way they did because that's just what we know is best, and that's obviously what's going to happen in the future, but we don't want that to happen, even though we knew it wasn't going to happen, that teeter-totter idea back and forth. But it's also reminding us that it's okay for things to just continue on, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's gonna keep changing. Like, our life is meant to be continuous streamline, always, always, always. And the thing that kind of pops out for me the most is that I'm just really sitting in that, because when you explained yourself, Sid, a lot of emotions were coming forward, and I was like, holy shit, yep, holy shit, yep, holy shit, yep. And when I was in that mindset, it was scary. It was very scary because I lived it. So I know, like, those feelings came forward. It was like ego, like my chest was starting to be like, oh my God, oh my God. Because the mindset I was in was, yeah, well, it's like, it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same. And going through my growth spurts and kind of moving to, I want to say, like, the other side in a positive way, is that instead of focusing so much on what didn't work and what isn't working, the one question I had to ask myself that helped me shift everything to get to where I am at right now is, what if it does work? Like, what if it does work? What if this new chapter in my life is actually the best thing for me? What if it was way better than what my 20s were? Like, what if all those negative things that I thought were possible are actually completely more possible or more positive for me to be coming in the future? And that simple question, honestly, it helped me change from the way that you just kind of described everybody, because that was old Angie 100%, to now, well, what if it works, like, out in my favor? Like, that energy shift and just asking that simple question. I don't know if that resonates with you, Sid, or if that has ever been like an epiphany for you on your timeline. But to kind of finish off what I'm saying, I also want to ask you a question. Has there been like a pivotal moment in your 20s that was like that aha moment where you're like, it's okay that they're coming to an end, I'm excited for the future to come? And if so, what did that look like?
Yeah, I want to answer that question because I have something that is coming forward in my mind. And it's, maybe I'm taking the question a little bit differently than you're posing it, but I think I believe it's always important to say what's the first thing that has come on our mind. So 100%. I've got that idea and I'm going to store it, and I'm going to come back to it in a second, because I just want to point out a couple of things that you said. You said we are what we know. And it's interesting because I agree with you. And at the same time, I see how that sentence is very limiting. But then you said you got to a place in your life where instead of focusing on what didn't work, you shifted your mindset into seeing, well, what if it could work? And that right there, I believe, is how you stepped away from the limit of we are what we know. Because I think if we're saying we are what we know, like you said, we only know our past because it's something that we've experienced. And the way that I think we need to open ourselves up in that sentence, and in order to be excited for our future, in the saying we are what we know, what if we say, well, we know that there's unlimited possibilities. We know that anything is possible. We know that we don't know everything. And in recognizing that, we're opening ourselves up. So rather than saying we are what we know, period, point blank, because that's very limiting, because we don't know everything. So if we're identifying with the fact that I am the knowledge that I have, then we can, that fear of the unknown can really take over. But if we acknowledge I don't know everything, and I'm excited to continue to gain wisdom and to gain knowledge, you're saying I am what I don't know, because I'm recognizing that I don't know everything. And so I'm opening up and expanding who I could be.
I like that. And it's funny because the quote, it's part of a quote. It has a continuation to it. So maybe this might sound different, but I love that you pointed that out. It's we are what we know. So if we change what we know, we change who we are.
You're on your spiritual journey, desiring to create a deeper connection with your inner spirit and your soul path. but you feel lost in how to create more joy and calmness through life's challenges. In the meditation membership, you will feel seen for who you are and understood in a way that feels empowering and uplifting, alongside a community of like-minded beings. For only $33 per month, you will get 2 live calls filled with spiritual lessons, open-minded conversation, and powerful guided meditations. Join the meditation membership for more connection and support as you grow into the best version of you.
So it's this constant idea of evolvement, but also the way that you expressed it and kind of added that extra question, you're immediately already allowing yourself to be okay with not knowing everything. Like, there are no more limitations. Whereas the continuation of that quote is just saying, keep learning, keep integrating, keep, because there's more. It's not just you are what you know. When you change what you know, you change who you are. Because the more information that we gather, like as you're saying, it just opens up that limitation. So I don't know, for some of us that kind of heard the ending of that, if that resonated as well, or if it kind of added on to what Sid was saying. But I love that question that you asked, Sid, because it's so beautiful, right? Like, as soon as we remove that, it's like, boom, we just have all this more.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important that you did add in the continuation of the quote, because I think it really does show that concept of growth, that concept of gaining more knowledge, that concept of shifting as life shifts, of being willing to change, of being willing to acknowledge that I don't know what's coming. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be bad. It means that I get to grow and I get to become a better person through whatever comes my way. So I think that that's beautiful. So now going back into what I put over to the side here, I can't remember exactly what you asked me, but it was something around the lines of shifting into those 30s. Was there something that happened in my life that was maybe an aha or some sort of excitement? And I think it happened before.
Wait, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just before you continue, I kind of want to add to that. It was more specific in terms of, because I believe we've all had this mindset of scarcity at a certain point of our life. And us, like, we removed ourselves from that mindset to learn into this mindset of abundance and understanding that we don't know everything. There's this limitless potential and stuff. So it was also a question in regards to what shifted your mindset from this general population to where we're at to then where we're going. So that's more specifically what I wanted to know. But if that,
I think, which is great, because I think
Okay.
that actually fits more with like what I wanted to say.
Okay,
so I'm
good.
glad that you reiterated that. So for me, it happened just after I turned 27 years old. So I had a couple of years left before turning 30. But I had been in a job, and I've talked about this numerous times, is when I had my mental breakdown. And I'd been in a job for 5 years. I absolutely loved my job. I loved my position. And I thought that it was a line of work that I could continue in for the rest of my life. But at the same time, in the last few months of my work, the environment started to become a little bit more toxic. And I really started to feel the effects of that, of being an empath, of being a people pleaser, wanting to make sure that everyone else was taken care of, wanting to make sure, or not acknowledging my empathic ways. Like, this was before I had positive coping mechanisms for my emotions. This was before this was before I really jumped into my personal development journey. The moment in the middle of my mental breakdown, when I was offered a way out of the life that I had been living, that was the moment for me that changed my life. And I don't think in that moment I was consciously aware of how it changed my life. Like, looking back on it now, I can see how it changed. And I think it ultimately changed my life because what led me to my mental breakdown was this concept that I had to stay where I was. Like that, the beginning of that sentence, you are what you know. Like, this job, this life, this is what I know. And so this is who I am. And I really allowed my job to become my life. I didn't really have friends outside of my job. I had family nearby, but I loved my job so much that it became all of me. And so
Right.
I very much was in that space of I am what I know. And if this is hurting me, if this is causing me as much pain as it is right now, then does that mean that I have to stay in this pain? Does that mean that I have to keep moving through? And just to like lay it out for maybe the people that are listening or watching that don't know my story, I had signed a contract. And when you're in a position, when you're working for another company and you sign a contract and you're young, like I was 27 and not confident in who I was, I think that concept feels limiting. It makes you feel like you're stuck. If you are not happy, if you are in a space of pain, if you're in a challenge and maybe you got married and maybe your relationship isn't actually supporting you. Maybe the relationship has run its course, and I'm a believer in divorce. I think it can do a lot more help than forcing yourself to stay in something that isn't working. Maybe you have gone to university or college and you're in a program that actually isn't what you're supposed to be doing. But because you signed up and because you're paying for it, you feel like you have to see it through. Maybe you're doing something that your parents really wanted you to do, and you want to see it through because you don't want to hurt their feelings. I think there's so many ways that we can get ourselves into a position where we feel stuck. But ultimately for me, I felt like there wasn't a way out. I felt like I had to do this. And my feelings and emotions and thoughts formed into a breakdown because I recognized I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I can't keep doing this. And somebody offered me an out. Somebody else said, what if you leave? And it was in that moment where I was like, oh my God, I can be somebody else. I can do something else. Yeah. It was in that moment where it's like my life doesn't have to be the past that I've experienced, like that. When you change what you know, you change who you are. So it was that recognition of like, even though I've signed a contract and I've committed to being here, I don't actually have to be here. I can walk away. And I think it's really hard being a people pleaser, knowing that you're going to hurt somebody else based on your actions. But I think ultimately I had to learn that I was hurting myself based on my actions. And so it's actually better. It's best if you don't hurt anyone, but this is life. People experience pain. It's part of the contrast that we have to experience, unfortunately. It's inevitable, exactly. So getting myself to that space of recognizing I need to stop hurting myself and holding myself here because I thought that I had to stay here because I signed a contract is hurting me. And I need to walk away and I need to start fresh.
Sid, wow. Like, thank you for sharing that. We haven't talked about that in a while. And I think this is a very important time for you to bring this forward because like we've been doing this podcast for so long and we did talk a lot about this at the start. And I think this is such an important reminder to kind of bring forward into where and why we're continuing on with our personal development, because that was like the catalyst moment for you to turn that on switch and say, hold on a sec, I'm in control of my life and this is not okay right now. But until we've kind of removed that belief that it was okay for us to walk away from it, that right there was your pivotal moment in kind of honoring what you don't know. Because again, you didn't even know that it was a possibility for you to quit. And then here you are, or moving on, letting go, whatever words you want to use in that sentence there. But you then were in an okay-ish position to then decide something different, or because you had that idea come to you, right? It was something that was outside of you that came to you, that gave you that opportunity, that chance. to see that other perspective, to say like, hey, there is another way, and this is it, take it or leave it, but this might actually answer some of your problems. And obviously, as both of us are sitting here, they definitely did. And I kind of sitting here, I couldn't help but think, I'm like, okay, well, what was like my real moment too? Because as you were talking about this whole idea of a contract, right? Like, because some of us might not have ever signed a contract, so we don't know what that feels like. I want to talk about my experience because it felt very limiting in terms of similarity feelings in terms of what you went through. And for me, it wasn't a contract that I signed, but it was a partnership, a relationship that I was in. I felt like that was the guy I was going to end up marrying, having a whole bunch of kids with. I just thought that relationship, as toxic as it was the only thing that I knew. So I just had to just make it work. And you said you're a firm believer of leaving things that are not working for you. Well, here's the thing. I was a firm believer that you had to make it work in order for you to continue on with your life. So there was no contract signed, but it was like this unconscious, this subconscious contract I've created with that person, saying like, I can't leave them because I've already started to create a life. Who would I be outside of the relationship? What would that look like even in our life individually, in our life together, if we were to leave? Like, there's no other option. We just have to stick it through. So as toxic as it is, like, figure it out, right? It's that contract that was never verbally said or done. It was just having this belief that the truth that you are in right now is the only truth. That's it. That's all. And there's no other way out. It's just, this is it. This is your reality. So for some of us that are listening or watching, I hope that you can also kind of sense that in your life. It doesn't always have to be a definite, defined contract that's signed, like verbally written. It can also be a belief that you've carried because you're just so comfortable with your life the way that it is and has been for so long. And for me, I got into that relationship. Well, I met him technically when I was 19, but I really got into that relationship when I was 21. So from the age of 21 all the way through until 29, that was what I had thought was true. Like, that was how the rest of my life was going to dictate, because that was all my 20s. So that meant that my 20s was then going to be my 30s, right? Like, but I decided to change what I know from that all.
I want to jump in because the job that I worked, it was only 5 years, but it was 22 to 27. So that's
those are like your big years in 20s. Huge chunk of the 20s, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think I want to just touch on, you said, and this might not be your exact words, but you said something along the lines of, you have to put the work in to create the life. And that was kind of your belief in that relationship. Got like, we're here work. To make it work. Thank you.
That's what it was. Yeah.
You have to put the work in to make it work. Okay. That actually makes so much better I got to write it down.
I like that. That makes so much better. We're English majors, if you're all wondering.
Let's just blow right past that. So in my concept, I had signed a contract, and in your concept, you had not signed a physical contract. But in both, I think the subconscious belief was, we have to put the work in to make it work. And I think something that most of us learn in our 20s. And if we don't learn it in our 20s, then we learn it in our 30s. And if we don't learn it, like, it's something that we all eventually have to learn. And it comes down to this idea of values and kind of looking at the situation that you're in from a different perspective. And so what I mean by that is, my situation with my old job was, I felt like I had to put the work in to make it work. I'd signed a contract, so I got to put the work in to make it work. And then everything's going to work out beautifully. Like, I'm helping these people get through their issues. I'm the middle person, making sure that everything is working out nicely. And like, we're all working together to come to a resolution. We're all working together to come to harmony, except for we weren't all working together. I was the one that was putting in the work, and whether or not they were putting work in themselves, the other people in this situation, ultimately, our values were not the same. And so, and with you, Ange, and your relationship, ultimately your values weren't the same and you weren't putting in the same work. And I think it's in those moments where we need to take a step back. And that's why I said I believe in divorce, because whether you're breaking up, you're not actually married, but you've been together for a long time, or you are married and you're separating and you're ending in divorce, it's because, or you're leaving a job, or you're changing, whatever it is that you're stepping away from and you're choosing to create a new life. It's because you've recognized, I've put in the work. I've put in the work. The change hasn't happened because there's another party. There's another person. There's a corporation. There's something else on the other side of this connection, relationship, whatever that looks like, that is not putting in the same work that I am, because we have different values. And we're not going to reach a resolution because we're actually both not working towards the same direction. 100%. And I think it's in that moment usually where we kind of pull back and we say, I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I can't keep putting this work in and nothing's coming from it. There has to be a different way. There has to be something else. And that is where I got to. That idea that I wasn't afraid of the unknown, because I said, it has to be better than what I'm currently experiencing. It has to be.
Absolutely. Because what you're experiencing is awful.
Painful.
It's terrible. Like, get me the hell out of here. Like, and I kind of want to piggyback to that, because I had a thought earlier and I think it'll tie in now. And it's coming back to what we first talked about, talking about this backtracking here. But when we first talked about this idea of a cycle ending and then a new cycle beginning, for me, in the middle of like 21 to 29, there was a big part of that cycle that ended that also helped me kind of open things up. And that was, we'll go back to episode 1 or episode 101, when my poor little kitty cat, Leo, when he passed away. That was the one of, if not the most difficult moments I've ever had to experience in my life, because what I know to be true was all of a sudden no longer true at a split second of a time. Like, it took a second for it to kick in and it be real and like, holy crap. But at the same time, through it all, it helped me see my values so much more clearer than before he had passed. And I'm going to try not to get emotional here. Keyword try. But for me, the catalyst of it all was that Leo, taught me what unconditional love was. Oh my God. Okay, I'm trying. And this idea of unconditional love is that no matter what happens, you will love that thing, that person, all of its flaws, all of its great things, no matter what. No matter what, no matter how much you hate the little things, no matter how much you dislike certain portions of that relationship, of that thing, of that person, that activity that you're doing, at the end of the day, you love it all because you love all parts of it. And that was Leo. And as soon as he left, he reminded me of what unconditional love was. And I knew in that moment, I was no longer, I'm so sorry, but I was no longer receiving that love of what I've known to be true my whole life up until that point. And it opened up so many doors into, it's possible for this relationship to end, because that was a big part of that relationship. I don't know, it's just a cat, but anyone that's an animal owner, you'll get me. So thank you for those that get me. But at the end of the day, unconditional love is unconditional love. It doesn't matter where it comes from. The point is that it's unconditional. There are no conditions on how much you like it, on how much you dislike it. It's no matter what at the end of the day. Like, for example, to think of it completely different, yours and I's relationship, Sid, like our best friend relationship, it is unconditional love. No matter how much we disagree, and no matter how much you hate some of the things that I do, you don't really hate anything, let's be real, but dislike, you still love it all because it's me, right? It's that unconditional, it's like that unspoken level of unconditional no matter what. And I realized that when Leo had passed, I wasn't receiving that. I wasn't. So for me, that opening to my own mindset was like, something's got to fucking change here. I can't be treated this way anymore, because I'm realizing how much I wasn't valuing myself in it all. I wasn't putting myself first. So hell's no, is there no self-love, because I got to do it, all the things for the relationship. I got to do all the things for work. I got to do things to make it work. It was like this unhealthy attachment to just like, make it work, please, because it's all I know. So like, just don't change, because like, if I make it work, then that level of control that I have, it'll all be fine. It's not. So yeah.
Yeah. First of all, don't ever apologize for crying.
Thank you. Thank you.
Emotions are our guides. They tell us something that we need to logically process through, and we need to logically see from a different perspective. I think ultimately in both of our stories here, and what led to our recognition that the next decade gets to be so much better, not because the last decade was awful. That's not at all what we're saying, right? You said earlier that you liked your 20s. I loved my 20s, right? But what we're saying is, now that we've learned a lesson, we're choosing to move forward with that wisdom. And the lesson that I think both of us learned was how to value ourselves, right? Because like I was saying, I was hurting myself. And I was so afraid of hurting somebody else that I thought that I should just keep hurting myself. And I wasn't valuing myself. I wasn't valuing what I bring to the situation. I wasn't valuing who I am and what I deserve. And not just what I deserve, but what I require, like what's a necessity, right? And the same goes for you. And so I think when we get to this place in our life where we wake up, whatever that looks like, and I truly believe that for me, my mental breakdown was a spiritual awakening. And it sounds like for you, the passing of Leo was a spiritual awakening. Because it was a moment that we woke up and we said, how am I living? And is this actually how I want to continue living? For me, when I walked away and I chose to start fresh, it wasn't because I knew where I was going. It wasn't because I knew who I was. It wasn't because I knew what I wanted. It's because I knew that I didn't want the past. It's because I knew that I didn't like who I had become. And it's because I knew that I deserved more. And so I was willing to step into the unknown to figure out what that more was.
Tired of trying multiple fad diets and various workout programs, yet still feel like there is nothing working? Lacking the consistency and confidence in your own knowledge of what to do in and out of the gym is why those last 10 pounds feel impossible to lose. You need the accountability to remind yourself that this is a lifestyle you're creating, not an end result. Why? Because your happy, healthy life is the result. I'm here to show you how to feel good about your body every single day, and the Fit and Free membership does just that. It's for the woman who needs accountability and a structured program or routine. For only $40 a month, you'll get 8 live recorded workouts with a personal trainer, 1 mindset coaching call, and over 50 plus different workouts to do on your own every single month. Get started by joining the Fit and Free membership today.
That's it, right? Like that's literally it. We have to come to a place in our life. And as you and I both experienced, that place of our life was in our 20s. It was a place for us to recognize what is no longer serving us. And it feels scary in the moment because you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why am I all of a sudden feeling this way? Like what, like what's going on? Everything I've known is now not true anymore, or it's different, or, right? Like everyone's situation is going to look differently, but there is a moment in our life where that one thing that happens changes your perspective on everything. And I'm here to say, please just breathe through it. Breathe through it all until you can actually catch yourself breathing. Because when you let that moment slip by and you don't do anything about that moment, guess what's going to happen? That moment is going to keep eating at you and taking away more and more and more. And you're just going to keep showing up with this, I have to energy. And then all of a sudden, something completely outside of your control is going to happen. And then now you're forced to make a change. You're forced to do something different. And I just want to remind you just to breathe, because it's okay. You're going to be okay. You needed to learn this. You needed to go through this in order for you to realize where your potential lies, and that what you said, Sid, that you deserve more. You deserve more. It's okay to want more than what you have. It's not that it's bad and it's not good enough for you. It's just because you're coming more in tune with who you are, because you're changing what you know and you're understanding those values and their importance to you, and that you're wanting to make a change because you're realizing how important they are. So just breathe through it all.
Yeah. And we're allowed to change. So if something did work for you in the past, and now all of a sudden you're realizing, oh, this actually doesn't fulfill me anymore, or this isn't what I want, that's okay. But I think, for us, it really stems from this idea of like, you just turned 30. So you're heading into this new decade with so much excitement and so much desire to adventure and create into the unknown. And I'm in my 30s, so I have the same desire, a couple years ahead of you, but that's okay. It's not a race.
No,
it's like we're just
we're
reaching
on our own
deathbed.
timeline. Yeah, exactly.
But I think the reminder is for whoever is listening. If you're approaching your 30s, if you're in your 30s, if you're past your 30s, if you're well past your 30s, that doesn't matter. We're not talking about we're not saying the 30s is going to be the best years of our life. We're saying right now you have a choice. And that choice is either to repeat the past that you've already experienced, or to create something more for yourself, to move forward, recognizing that the future can bring more. It can bring more love, more joy, more blessings. So you are what you know. So when you change what you know, you change who you are. And I think that's what it comes back to.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Sid, this was such a beautiful conversation. And as much as I want to continue, I really think this is a perfect. Yeah, let's continue next week, because dang, like that was obviously not where I expected the conversation to go, but that's why I love these conversations, because we just allow ourselves to flow through whatever emotions are coming forward, whatever thoughts are being pinged in our mind, and to say like, you know what, I need to say this right now. And that's what life is all about, right? Living your best life in the moment to moment basis, based off of what feels good for you. And as soon as something doesn't feel good, I'll look at it and figure out if you keep wanting to have that not feel good feeling in your life, or get the hell out of my life.
Yes. And before I jump into a card reading here, the day that, if you're listening to this, the day that it comes out, which is Monday, March 21st, or if you listen to this shortly after that, that's okay. But in the Northern Hemisphere on Sunday, March 20th. So for Angie and I, it has not happened yet. For those of you listening, it's already happened. In the Northern Hemisphere, spring equinox has just happened. We're in a new season, and spring is actually the beginning of a cycle. And so this is the perfect time for you to connect to this concept of planting your dreams and desires into the soil, and trusting in the bigger picture, and allowing yourself to wipe that slate clean and recognize, hey, I've learned a lot over the past year, and I'm going to bring this wisdom with me forwards as I create more through this next year. So something to reflect on.
Sid, as you're shuffling that, I need to say this. For the past week, almost 2 weeks, I've been consistently seeing 111 or 1111, 1111. And I'm like, oh my God, new beginnings, new cycles. And then as soon as you said spring equinox, it made so much sense, because we're starting this new this new beginning, and we're doing it collectively. I'm doing it individually, but we're
Mm-hmm.
all doing it together. So, wow.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, we've got a couple cards that have come forward for us. This is just going to bring us some great guidance as we kind of start this new cycle. Really, whenever you're listening to this, if you're listening to this well after, or you don't live in the Northern Hemisphere, totally okay, totally okay. So take what resonates and leave the rest. Crystal clear intentions from Archangel Michael. Be clear about what you desire and focus upon it with unwavering faith. If there was a message that signified spring season, this would be it. It is literally about planting your seeds, those are your dreams and desires, and trusting that they will grow, right? If you plant a seed and you dig it up every day to see if anything's happening, you're slowing the process. You're disturbing the environment. That's what your doubt does. When you set your desire, your dream up into the universe for manifestation, when you doubt, it's like you're digging it up and you're saying, is this actually happening? Be clear about what you desire and focus upon it with unwavering faith.
Yes.
Next card. Self-forgiveness. Let go of old guilt and remember that you're God's perfect child. This is excellent. When we want to start a new cycle and we're wiping the slate clean, we got to release the shit that we've been holding on to. So if you learned lessons over the past year, take the wisdom, but emotionally and energetically detach from the judgment that you've been carrying towards yourself and how that lesson came about. We don't learn lessons in the blessings. We learn lessons in the challenges. Maybe you guided yourself to that challenge because of a choice you made. Maybe somebody else pushed you into that challenge. Maybe you have no idea where that challenge came from, but you're still kind of holding on to judgment and shame about how you moved through it. That energy is kind of like the doubt. It's resisting anything good from flowing into your life. So self-forgiveness. I encourage you guys to grab a journal and journal through all of this, because these are some really powerful messages. Because the third and final message is patience from Archangel Jophiel. Your dreams are blooming more rapidly than you realize. Still, they need nurturing and patience. And in the photo, she's watering a garden, right? So crystal clear intentions, self-forgiveness, and patience. 3 beautiful things that we are being called to connect with right now.
So beautiful, Sid. And just to kind of rewind a little bit, you said let's journal on these 3 messages. Can you give some journal prompts for our listeners and our viewers that will be helpful in order for them to to embody these reminders today?
Yes. Crystal clear intentions. What do I desire? Simple as that.
Love it.
What do I desire? And then to kind of go off of that, what are my doubts around this desire? When you can acknowledge your doubts, it becomes a lot easier for you to release them. If you hear the doubts come forward and you're ignoring them and you're avoiding them, that energy is still within you. So you have to bring awareness into the doubts to actually release that energy. So then to go with that, in that space of self-forgiveness, how can I forgive myself for carrying these doubts? Okay. Lastly, what can I do? What can I take action on? What can I do in order to carry patience with a calm mind and a heart filled with love? What action can you do that allows you to carry patience? For me, it's walking outside in nature. But you got to figure out what that means for you. If you love journal prompts, I write spiritual ebooks that are filled with journal prompts. So go to my website, adventuringwithposeidon.com, and check out the ebooks that I have available. They will help you through that spiritual awakening so you can create alignment in your life.
Oh, those were beautiful said. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, no problem. It's what I'm here for. So I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation today. You guys, as in the listeners and the viewers. I know I so enjoyed having this conversation with you, Ange, and talking about what we talked about today. I think it was a really important topic to discuss. And I think we brought a lot of perspective, a lot of eye-opening perspective to a very important topic. So if you guys listening enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us to grow. If you watch on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, because again, it helps us to grow so more people can see the video. Leave a comment down below. And we are sending you guys with so much love, light, and strength so you can shift forward in your life in a beautiful, loving, inspirational way. Until next week, bye everyone.